What's up, everybody? It's your girl, Kairi Thomas Brooks, and welcome to our new live virtual show, 21 Questions. I'm an aspiring civil rights lawyer. I'm a junior in high school, and I'm invited to this amazing initiative called Hey Blue. Hey Blue has been inspiring the community and police officers to build connections, meaningful connections together, and just creating these awesome bonds between the two. Here on 21 Questions, we ask 10 questions each. I have a special guest that I'll be introducing a little bit later on. I'll ask the police officer 10 questions. He'll be able to ask me or she 10 questions, and our 21st question will come from our viewers. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce our first guest. He is nationally recognized for his community policing efforts, Corporal Fleming from the South Hill, Virginia Police Department. Thank you for joining us.
Hello.
Hi,
Kairi. Thank you. I appreciate it. My audio was off on my end, but I think I've got it straight now.
So thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. Everything.
I'm excited. I'm looking forward to this. I'm a little nervous about it. I think we talked before, and we're just trying to get all of our questions go. So it's going to be exciting. It really is.
All right. Well, then let's jump into it. My first question for you, Mr. Corporal Fleming, would be, how did you become nationally recognized? What did you do?
Oh, man. Okay. I ended up responding to a call that we had at one of our apartment complexes, and it was a fire alarm call, just like a little smoke alarm. And when we cleared up from that, I observed some children that were just playing outside of an adjoining apartment complex. And there's a lot of lights and a lot of sirens, a lot of noises, and a lot of stuff going on at that point. I have kids and young kids myself, and I decided to go over and just try to entertain myself, not necessarily them, but entertain myself, to take myself off the call and to try to keep them calm. And fortunately, one of the parents kind of took some video of me and shared it locally on some social media, and it kind of blew up a little. And I thoroughly have enjoyed it, and it's been absolutely wonderful. It's been a great thing for my community and for our law enforcement community as well locally.
Now, you saying that you enjoying it so much, that's what a way to become nationally recognized, right? That's wow, outstanding. What made you decide to want to be an officer is my next question to you from that.
Okay. It's a little weird, I guess you could say. I was, as a young person, I wasn't always the best kid. Sometimes it depends on who you're around, and I may have gotten in trouble. I personally am a 13-year-old convicted felon. I got in trouble. I was around the wrong crowd, did some bad things. I fortunately had contact with a great law enforcement officer who didn't just treat me as a young juvenile delinquent, but he was kind and a little bit of understanding, and he was able to explain things to my parents very well. And I went through that whole process, and it ended up molding me into a much better person, just because I had a police officer who was a large thing of authority, and he showed me this kindness. And so throughout my life, I guess I kind of wanted to give back, and I was fortunate to get a career going at our local our police department. And from there, I never wanted to be a cop, but I had a lot of kids, and I was looking for a good career that I thought they might be proud of, and I knew that was a good officer, and it kind of went from there. And now I'm 16 plus years in this career. I never thought it'd be that.
Congratulations.
And I do. I love it more and more every day.
That's great. Working, you're so enthusiastic with what you're saying and how, you love your job and everything like that. So here's my next question to you.
Okay.
Has there ever been a day that was just so bad, a scene that, call that you were called to, that you're on call and you were just like, I don't think I can do this anymore. Was there ever a day for you like that?
There have been a few days like that, and I believe that that's probably consistent across the board for law enforcement officers in the nation and possibly the world. But there's always a silver lining in the job that we do. We're here to serve and protect as law enforcement, and that's what I want to do. And so those bad calls, that's usually when people see us in very bad times. And I was fortunate to have one bad call where a close personal friend of mine ended up being deceased at his apartment complex. And I was an officer that responded to that. And I have to separate personal from my profession. And after we left that call, I was a little downtrodden, and a young girl who was celebrating her birthday that day, she was turning 4, was walking with her mother, and just out of nowhere was like, "Can I have a hug for my birthday?" All she wanted was to hug a cop. And I was standing right there, and here I am, and just the world was crashing around me in my job and everything. And this young 4-year-old girl just turned my world around. And she asked for a sticker badge and all, and I didn't have it at the time. And I made a point that I went back and I got her some birthday gifts, because she changed my world that day. And she helped me out so much, and she'll never understand that. And to this day, I still have contact with that little girl on her birthday.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's so sweet. That's tough. I'm so sorry for your loss.
Oh,
separating personal from business. I just felt I needed to say that. So I'm glad she was able to bring that out in you again, to reignite, the flame that you had for the job that you have now. That's extremely good.
She showed me I was doing the job I do, and that grounded me. That set it, and
Right.
It just made it clear.
Right. That's man, just seeing what was going through your head, that's tough. A close family friend, that's tough. And, someone so innocent was just able to, that we need more of that. We do.
Yeah. Through a child's eyes. And that's how she just wanted to hug me. And that was the amazing part. So I appreciated that.
So my next question to you would be, what is your proudest moment in policing?
Oh, I would love to take the easy route and say, hey, the viral videos and everything like that. But I have children that are first responders as well. And probably one of my most proudest moments is responding to a rescue call and my daughter being there. And I watched her bring somebody back to life.
Wow.
And I just didn't know. You're going to make me cry here. So I didn't know she had it in her like that. And, all her life, she's just known, Daddy to be a police officer and a first responder. And of course, she told me that, she loved me and she thought it was a noble career, and she was always and she wanted to follow my footsteps. But I didn't want her to do this, but she wanted to be a first responder and she wanted to give back. And because of that, like, I watched my own child bring somebody back to life, and that person survived. And I'm so thankful for that. That's probably one of my proudest moments, because that was just me being a dad,
Right. That's moving. Like, you had your career in one hand, and then, you being a parent in the other hand. That's very, especially as you're saying, seeing your daughter doing something like that. That's moving.
Yeah. I want to touch lives. And so if I'm touching my daughter's lives and she's touching other lives, that ripple effect just continues and grows and grows.
Yeah.
And so I'm fortunate, all the way back to your other question about that law enforcement officer that got me in trouble when I was young. Oh, it went, full circle. It's come back around. So it works out great.
Right. Okay. So my 5th question for you, Corporal.
Okay.
Now this one's a little, we're going to get there. Okay. How do you feel about the police brutality incidents that are happening within the United States today?
Sometimes I find myself personally being an odd duck in my profession. Unfortunately, there are a lot of great officers throughout this nation, and unfortunately, there are bad officers. And most people will reflect on those bad officers more than the good officers. I find myself becoming upset. I find myself becoming angry. There's all those stages that you go through, not just as a police officer, but as a man, as a white man. There are all these different labels that I could fall into in those categories, and I don't want to get into that. So there's hurt, there's pain, there's anger. And as a police officer, I despise seeing bad police officers, the one that tarnish the badge that I wear. I do this job to serve and to protect, not to harm. I don't know any officer that wakes up in the morning and says, "Hey, I'm going to go out and I'm going to cause somebody major harm." I don't know any officer that does that. Not any good officer. Unfortunately, it's bringing it's not unfortunately, but it's shining a light on some systematic racism that falls into our profession and into the world. And I'm okay with it coming to light because it needs to change. There's a lot of change that needs to happen, and I want to be one of those officers that actually helps with that change.
Now, adding on to what you just said, my next question for you would be, what are you doing personally and when you're on call to make sure that you're creating change around situations like that, to be the positive to the negative?
Great question. Because I simply could just sign on to work, ride around, write parking tickets, traffic tickets, answer disturbance calls, and I could do all that. I don't. Once again, I enjoy doing what my job is now. I don't like being that bad cop. I want to be the cool cop, the nice cop. I go around to these local communities and I get out and I interact with people. I make myself part of their community because I want to show them that we're all here for the same thing. We're all on the same level, and I want them to feel safe, that they know that they can approach me, that they can talk to me, that I'm someone that they can come to for help. With the little kids, I have sticker badges. I'm able to. I've been fortunate for a lot of donations of books, all thanks to Hey Blue. Story time. I've gotten a flood of books from that, and we were able to share these books. And I ride around with a huge basket in the back of my patrol car, where I'm supposed to carry prisoners or detainees. This is where I carry all my books and I give out to kids. So when I stop, I'm able to share all this. And so when they see, Mr. Police Officer pull into the neighborhood, it's not, "Hey, 5050 Popo run," or whatever it is. It's Officer Fleming. I get that all the time. And I get the kids that wave and they jump and they shout. And Kairi, there's no better feeling than just pulling in. I feel like Santa Claus. I feel like Santa Claus. And I actually reached out, and I'm going to keep this going just for a little bit longer. I reached out to another officer that was nationally recognized, and he's known for his Basketball Cop Foundation. This amazing officer sent me a huge supply of basketballs and jump ropes and toys for kids in my community.
Wow.
Can't thank him enough. I carry those around, and I go around and I give these to all the kids. I get invited to birthday parties. I get to, they want Officer Fleming to come to their birthday parties, and I get to do this stuff. So I'm very thankful for my community also giving back so I can give more back. I know that was long-winded. I apologize.
Being able to connect, especially with our generation and everything that you just explained, it's outstanding. It's phenomenal. Being able to walk into the community and have the kids wanting to collaborate and talk to you and things like that. You also got involved another way, not just by reading and teaching, by basketball and jump roping and all these other things, being active with the kids. That's getting their head going. They're always going to remember that. It's always going to be a positive experience to them, So.
I really hope so, and that's why I try to do it. But let me tell you, what the secret is that they pay me to actually throw the football to kids and stuff. So it's amazing.
That's great. All right. So my 7th question, Corporal, to you,
Okay.
Is there a law that you have to currently enforce now that you wish you didn't have to enforce, or you wish you could change?
There are probably a lot of laws that I may not personally agree with. There are some laws that I'm held to hold accountable. There are some laws that I probably this is going to be uncomfortable. I don't believe in a lot of the marijuana charges, and I believe a lot of people have been incarcerated have been wrongfully incarcerated for simple possession. Personally, I had a brother that served 9 years off a 25-year sentence for dealing drugs. I knew that brother from from prison. That's how I got to know him. That's changing, I believe, because I believe that sometimes that this has been on an issue that it allowed, like marijuana charges allowed cops to get into vehicles or get into places that maybe sometimes they shouldn't have. I can't vouch for every kind of call that goes through there, but that would be my choice. Look, to sum it up, there's some charges, like when it comes to drugs, that I don't agree with and I think need to be changed. They need to be looked at from a different point of view now. Some laws are antiquated.
I know it was a little tough question. I didn't really mean to, catch you off guard. But it's different for the inside than it's the outside. So I just wanted to ask you that to see where your head was at, especially wearing the uniform, things like that. Because I know it can get a little tricky separating, like you said earlier, your feelings from your job.
Right.
What needs to be done and how you actually feel. It gets tough. So.
Okay.
All right. So my 8th question to you, Corporal.
Okay.
Would be, did you grow up around diversity?
Yes, I actually did grow up around diversity. My mother is, well, you're not familiar I'm from Virginia. My father's from Southwest Virginia, which is very, very rural. It's a coal mine. My mother's from Northern Virginia, which is near DC. Very, very seems progressive. Just them two getting together was diverse enough. But where I lived in South Hill, Virginia, my parents bought a small place, and we were the only white family in a black neighborhood. I didn't know any difference. I didn't know there was supposed to be any difference. I just knew that they were families around me. And I played with the kids in the neighborhood, and we shared food in the neighborhood, and we broke bread together, and we talked, and we worked together. We rode mini bikes and all this stuff. And I was very fortunate. I know that now, growing up, I was very fortunate for that diversity being there for me, being available. And I was also very fortunate to have some very loving families that never judged me and took me right in, regardless of this right here.
Right. We need more of that too. We do. We need more of that too. Being able to connect regardless on what we look like, what we sound like, our height, our weight. There's a lot of that does need to go around. And for you to be able to experience that, again, a positive to a negative, you're giving back, being able to enforce that is amazing. So my 9th question to you, Corporal, would be, what was your most embarrassing moment as a police officer?
Man, really? Okay. Most embarrassing. There's a few times. So most embarrassing thing was maybe when I first came out. I may have run over a traffic cone and dragged it underneath my police car for a few miles, all the while just slowly driving through department store parking lot.
Oh my gosh.
And everybody looking at me, and I'm thinking that they were like, they're like, oh, there's a police officer driving by. And in fact, they were going, there's an idiot with a cone stuck underneath his car. At least that's how I felt. And so it was just funny that way. That's one of them. Yeah, that's pretty embarrassing in my opinion.
About yourself?
Say again.
So that you figured that out yourself, or like when you got in your car, did somebody have to tell you?
No, yes, I had to get out my car and find it. And then I'm just embarrassed, beyond embarrassed. Beyond embarrassed. Okay. But I'm okay with that. If that's the most embarrassing thing so far, then I'm okay with it.
All right. So my 10th and my final question for you, Corporal, would be, what are your feelings on the Black Lives Matter movement?
Wow. Okay. So my feelings on the Black Lives movement. Initially, when the Black Lives movement started, I was against it. I heard, I read, I thought they were coming after me and my job, my profession, me as a person. I felt offended, and I don't I don't know why now. Like that sounds crazy, but I honestly don't know why I felt offended at the point. Uh, and I had to have a talk with my brother. Like we shared this moment one time where we were just talking about this information, and I think he was concerned about how I felt about this, and he had to actually tell me, break it down of how it worked, because like I talked about, I didn't grow up from a affluent family. My dad was my parents were very old when I came around, the baby of 10 kids. Um, they were both retired when I came along. There wasn't a lot of money. I grew up in a black neighborhood. Everybody seemed the same, and that's what I told my brother. It's like I didn't see where privilege was. I was like, no, there's no privilege. What is going on with this? And he had to say, even though maybe you haven't benefited from it, it's there. It's available to you where it's not. And
Right.
he had to show that to me, and that was mind blowing to me, and I couldn't imagine what was going on with. And I'm so thankful for that, because at that moment, it shed light on a whole new world, and I had to go from there. And I'm very, very thankful for that.
So it's great that you had that awakening moment, not realizing why you were so defensive.
Yes, and I'm thankful for that, because here it is, changed me. I'm in my profession now, and I'm all for it. I'm all for Black Lives Matter, and I get it. It's there.
All right. Well, we're gonna take a short break before you ask me your
Okay,
10 questions. So
sounds great. I will get my stuff together, because you have gotten some great questions, and so now I've definitely got to kind of try to come back with some more.
all righty. All right, guys. So I hope you're enjoying so far. Little tough questions, but that's okay. That's what we're here for, to build connection through positive means. I would like to say thank you to Ben and Jerry's, our sponsors, Central State Bank. Thank you to you guys, big brothers and big sisters. Thank you to you guys, and the Verde Eco School. I would like to thank you guys, Mr. John and your wife, beautiful family. Thank you guys so much for everything that you guys do. So yeah. So this is great. Ooh. Question for me. Cool. You're in high school. Do you have any friends who want to go into law? Oh, okay. From wanting to head back. Okay. Yes. Great question. I do have friends that want to pursue law, and myself, I would like to be a civil rights attorney. Things that do happen today, yes, they are altering perspectives. I had a best friend. He was so gung-ho about being an officer and everything like that, and he's a young man of color. And once he saw everything that was going on, he didn't know if he wanted to put the badge on. Great question. What he was seeing on TV was really, it was very damaging to his psyche, seeing young men and young women who look and, have the same skin complexion as him. Yeah, that's a tough, but working to change that. I think it just comes down to being able to facilitate meaningful connections, exactly what Hey Blue does, being able to understand both sides of the story, so that kids of young men and women of color who see the officers. Now, it's not just them. It can be any, I had a Caucasian friend, and she was gung-ho about being an officer. And so she saw what was going on. It was like, why put the badge on? So yes, working to alter that is through communication, understanding, being able to bridge gaps, so that that what Corporal's doing, being in the field, this is what I want to do with it, regardless of what everyone else is following, whatever trend it is. You go in that career field because it makes you happy. And so that's what I tell them. So that was an amazing question. So, and I wanted to go into law because I wanted to create change for everybody, not just myself, my family, my mom, my dad, my sisters, my friends. So yeah, thank you for that question. That was really good. So if Corporal is ready, I think he is. We can go ahead and bring him back in to ask his 10 questions. So, hi, Corporal. Welcome back.
Hi, once again. Great question and great answer.
Thank you.
This is going to be wonderful. I don't know why you got me nervous, but you threw out some really good questions, and I'm very impressed, and I'm thankful for that, because there's some stuff that I really want to be able to share with people. I love this back and forth because you get to know me and I get to know you a little bit more, and that's how we bridge. That's how we're bridging everything. So now I'm going to start off on everything, and mine will be. I'm going to jump around on some of my questions because
That's fine.
You started off easy on me, and then you really threw them at me. So here we go. What advice do you have for new and young law enforcement officers that are coming into the profession?
What advice do I have for new and young? Okay. Just as I answered the last question that was asked, I think pursuing any career, I would want them to make sure that's the career field that they want to go into. Because it can happen that every day you get caught up in how the job's supposed to work, This is what I signed up for. This is what I have to do. And not that you're truly happy in the profession that you want to do, whether you're young or you're old. I feel like you need to have a passion for it. And I know society doesn't teach that a lot. It's what makes the most money, or, what will bring you clout, popularity. But I really think it's what makes you happy, because my dad always tells me that it's not work if it's something that you're enjoying.
Right.
So.
Well, good. Okay. Good answer, and I appreciate that one. Describe an interaction that you have had with law enforcement, good, bad, or indifferent.
Embarrassing. I've got one that's very embarrassing. So, I drive a blue PT Cruiser, right? 2006. Okay. And so I just got my license. I just turned 16 last year. I was like, yes, I'm excited. I get to drive by myself. My mom was like, all right, you can drive to school. And then I had basketball practice. So I'm like, I'm going to practice. I'm pulling up to Burger King and everything like that. I got a license. I'm all excited. And I'm coming home from practice. Practice is over. And my road lights were on. My mom's car has automatic lights. So when I get in the car and I hit the start button, the lights just turn on. And my car, go. I have to flick the little thing, right? So I get in the car and I end up calling my mom. I go, Mom, my lights aren't bright. She goes, what do you mean? I was like, they're not bright. Like, I can't. So she's like, Kairi, it's fine. You got it. Just go. So I'm like, I'm going to turn my brights on. So I'm thinking my regular headlights were my brights. So I flip them on. And she was like, don't turn your brights on, turn them off. So I end up turning my headlights off. So I get halfway to my brother's basketball game, because that's where I was heading, and I get pulled over the first night having my license. So I'm like, oh my God, that's right. So I'm freaking out at this point. So I end up calling my mom. She sits on the phone, and the officer was like, license, registration, blah, blah, blah. He's like, where are you going? And I'm like, I'm going to my brother's basketball game. Of course I'm really nervous because of, everything that I've seen on TV. I'm like, freaking out a little bit. So he goes, how old are you? And I go, I'm 16. And he goes, oh, really? And I was like, yes. I was like, it's my first night driving. He was like, oh, okay, well, your lights weren't on. So here, I'll show you. So he reaches my car and he turns my lights on. He's like, here are your road lights. Here are your headlights. And these are your brights. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, didn't know that. And he was like, it's fine. You play, I was like, I play for Space, so I play basketball. He's like, that's great. And he was like, have a nice night. Please be safe, blah, blah, blah. So I went. That was a positive experience I had. Embarrassing on my part. So mom was like, how could you not know? But,
Just for the record, I pulled over our local judge's wife for the same reason. She didn't have her lights on. Yeah, and she didn't know. It was a brand new car. So, hey, that's going to segue into another question that I have.
Okay.
Which is, well, I had it written down here. Oh, here it is. So describe what you would want law enforcement to be in 5 years.
Great question. Describe what I would want law enforcement to be in 5 years. I would want law enforcement to really be someone that we called or reached out to for help regarding anything at all. Suicide prevention, abuse at home. My house is on fire. They call you call the fire department, everything like that. I really think it needs to be community based.
Okay.
I really want it just to be, like I said before, passion. Like you're there to help. No biases, no nothing. Everything is just what you want to do, why you want to be there, and doing your job thoroughly. So
All right. From there,
say.
that's perfect. My next question would be, what can I do to be a better officer for you?
Corporal, everything that you've already named, everything that you're expressing to me that you're already doing, I couldn't ask for more. I'm like, hey, connect with the community. You're like, well, I read, I take books in the back of the car, and I could be like, okay, well, what about basketball? What about going to play sports, something like that? And you're like, oh, I already do that. I have a friend who's an officer, and he brings jump ropes and basketballs, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, just to answer your question, just everything that you're telling me was just going through my head, and I'm like, you're doing fine. You're doing perfect. I can't ask you for anything more because
I really appreciate that.
It's just things, you're just being yourself. And I couldn't ask for that more within your career field, So yes, you're doing an outstanding job. You're very welcome. You don't have to thank me. It's what you do. So
thank you. I 100% agree with you. I think law enforcement needs to move to more of a community policing based form.
yes.
So I am there with you. So my next question, what needs to happen overall with law enforcement to make these things better? Where do we go, as in how do we push this community-based policing more?
Well, in my opinion, first we need education. We need to be able to inform everybody about what goes on, right from wrong, regardless of how you feel about it, what needs to be done, and what you want to be done, as my dad say, are two different things. So education, I think, is its root. Being able to teach, and once you're able to teach and people can grasp the concept, then it's push for it. What do you stand for? What do you want? And I think that's where that comes in. Creating change that way. So education, I feel.
Okay. So you would think we actually practice this, but you are going to my next question, which is, what training should law enforcement officers have before they are allowed to start working in the streets? Like, is there something specific that you think that we should have as law enforcement that we may not have now?
Training that deals, I know you guys don't, and it's very hard within the society that we live in now for you guys not to sort of be that, how would I explain it?
Necessarily evil?
Well, yes, but I would, oh man, that's a really good question. I think mental health training.
Okay.
And I know you guys, that's not really your career field, is what I was trying to get at. That's not really your guys' profession, but I think within the society that we live in today, that's important. Especially dealing with the mental health of those who are colored. I know that seems far-fetched, but as a young woman seeing what goes on social media, whether it's good, whether it's bad, with, again, people who look like me, same skin complexion, it's a little difficult. So I think diversity training within mental health is needed. And it's not that it's us being treated, better on a higher scale. It's that, like you were saying, there's privilege that others have that sometimes they haven't even touched, but it's still accessible for them. And to others, it's not. So that's how I think I would answer your question, Corporal. I hope that was.
No, you're right. And I know exactly how you're going with that one. We do deal with a little bit of mental health training. There could be more. There's a lot of training that law enforcement, I believe, officers have, but I believe there's a lot of training that we don't have enough of.
Yes.
And it can range from anything. And I know there's this whole defunding of the police, and I think that that's a bad terminology. I think it's a better reallocation of funding for police. And I think that's sometimes police officers, I find, and it's only my personal opinion, but I find that sometimes police officers we wear many hats. Sometimes we do work the social worker. Sometimes we are a mentor. Sometimes we have to be the police officer. And mental health programs are something that we are definitely working towards and working for. So I can definitely see that working into us and everything else. What does a police officer, or let me ask you this, what lessons have your parents, we're going to go deep here real quick.
Got it.
What lessons have your parents told you as a Black American about police officers? What does that make sense?
Yes.
What stories, what warnings, what?
Perfect sense.
Okay.
There are things that as people of color have to deal with that others might not.
I don't know. This is it. I want to know and I want to learn and I need to grow.
One of the things that is always taught first is to always respect your elders. My parents taught me at a young age that dealing with police officers, you're going to get a lot of, unfortunately, racist cops. And just to give it to you blunt, that's just how it is. Being pulled over, keep your hands on the steering wheel where you can see them. Don't make any sudden movements. Make sure you always have your license and your registration somewhere that's accessible, so where the officer can be able to see where you're reaching. Never, never be aggressive. Never raise your tone. Try to remain calm because I know it's far-fetched, in some people's eyes, but my parents teach me that I'm always a threat to people with prejudice and biases and things like that. I'm always a threat. No, regardless of my education level, what I do for a living, how I speak, the way I dress, I'm always a threat. So anything that I can do that might alert the officer might be life or death, unfortunately. And it's scary for them, me driving. But that's what they taught me. Those are the lessons. That was a good question. Not expecting that one. And it's always, and I know this one's also far-fetched, but it's calling and have me on the phone and I want to know and, make sure, don't ever give anybody rides in your car that you don't know. If the drugs are placed in your car, it's in the possession of the driver, and they can say it's not mine, and then it lands on you, and then you've got a whole bunch of other charges coming at you. That's an onion, and there's layers. There's a lot of layers to that. So. Oh
yeah, it's a lot. Great answer, because these are things that I need to know. And I'm so sorry. I don't know if that means, but from the bottom of my heart. Because someone like me, someone that looks like me, typically, we don't know. We don't understand. And I think that that's where a lot of issues happen in our world. There's a lack of communication or a miscommunication and a lack of understanding.
Yes.
Like I said, I want you, Kairi, to know that as a 43-year-old white male, I didn't get that talk. I didn't have to share that talk. I did share that talk with my children. That's as a police officer, because that's exactly what I want my children to do on any traffic stop, if that's what they encounter, because it's a safety issue for the law enforcement. It's a safety issue for that person, not just. So I'm thankful I was taught that as well, but I do it for a totally different reason. So thank you for sharing that story, and I appreciate it, because that's why we're here. And the stories I hear, and I'm learning every day. And this is what's eye-opening, because I'm like, are you serious? Like, I didn't see this 10 years ago, 5 years ago. I didn't see it. I probably did see it 5 years. I didn't see it 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I didn't notice all this. And wow, it's there. And it's amazing. Um, Next question. I want to talk about something that's also national news. If should callers or complainants on subjects that make false statements or false reports be held more responsible? For example, let's do the Coopers in New York. The bird watcher, Mr. Cooper, that was watching birds, had asked Mrs. Cooper, who was walking her dog, to keep the dog back, and she called the police, and it steamrolled because she basically lied.
Correct.
That automatically, law enforcement are only dispatched knowing that simple information. So when they get there, they already have a bias set in mind. For lack of better term, there's already a bias that's possibly set in mind. Good officers go there and realize that there's three sides to every story, and we have to. But a lot of officers don't realize that, and they go just what's dispatched to them.
Yes.
Henceforth, you see what happens, what could happen. We've seen the detriment of those type of calls. My question is, should these callers and complainants be held more responsible? I call it the Karen effect. Because it's
to answer your question, yes. When you deal with court and a court of law, and although the callers, they're not under oath, no, they're not. But you do have a basic human right, your First Amendment to say, however you feel, things like that, regardless if it's bias or not. But when you infringe on another person's rights with your biases, that can cause them harm.
Okay.
Purpose, they need to be held accountable. And like you said, the officers, they need to start realizing that there are three sides to every story. So when they approach a call like that with the information given, they received on the phone, and they get there, they need to be able to be like, okay, maybe it's not what I heard. Let me step back. Let me reevaluate it here. De-escalation. You guys do have de-escalation training too. Yes.
Yeah.
So,
and I push de-escalation training. I think it's one of the most important aspects of our jobs.
Yes.
So good. I'm glad you brought that up. The escalation, and sometimes there are different types of cops. I'm the type of cop that when I get to a call, I want to de-escalate. I want to find a commonality. I want to bridge that gap, and I will reach great segue, because this goes to my next question. How can a police officer that looks like me, when I approach Black Americans or persons of color, how do I approach them without being deemed a threat? So I can discuss and I can start this conversation and I can do this. I have my own personal way, and I'm fortunate enough to live in a smaller community where a lot of people know me. So as soon as I arrive, they kind of know me, and it's already de-escalated. But I need to know how other officers need to be able to approach, instead of them just being deemed a threat.
I think that depends on the person of color that you are encountering. There, again, have been a lot of biases that have been installed, and sometimes it really might not be your fault.
Okay.
Because, you put one bad apple in a group of a whole bunch of good apples, and then all the other apples start rotting. My dad gave me that analogy too. Shout out to him. Anyways. What you do now, I think, is perfect. Being able to, that's a very tough question, because I know how fear is instilled through whatever goes on, and just being able to communicate that to the little girl or little boy who you're dealing with. I think that stating that you're not, especially if you're around the community all the time already and they see your face, that's familiar. Building connections with them besides doing your job like you do, basketball, football, whatever it is. And then it's like, okay, well, he knows me. He's here for my best interest. I'll speak. You know what I mean? Things like that. So, it's sort of like talking to a stranger. You're not going to tell a stranger or trust a stranger. But if you've seen that person around and they come and they talk to you every day and things like that, it becomes easier to communicate with them. So I think that's that. So
I think you're exactly right. And I think we keep finding that commonality on all of these questions. And it's basically, hey, just get out and let's just talk. Be
Right.
seen, be part. And that's one thing I love doing in my job now. When I first started this, Kairi, it wasn't that way. I thought I had to go a certain way. And I'm so thankful that I just wasn't that person and I got out and talked to people. Some people say it's a gift of gab. Sometimes I just think I just like people. And it's great to get out there and get to talking with them. So it's amazing. All right, I have one last question for you. After talking with me and all of these things, would you consider yourself? I know you want to be a lawyer.
Yes.
And I know that you said that you have friends that are looking to go into law enforcement.
Yes.
Would you push your friends to go into this career knowing that they could be part of a great change that occurs?
Yes. Especially being able to just them being able to create that change. Like the negative, there is a lot of negative that goes on, but it doesn't get nothing ever gets done if there is no positive push. So if that's really what they want to do, they want to go into law, that's what they need to do because we need more of them. So
Right.
I'm definitely push my friends. I'm like, yes, this is what you need to do. Like, go, do it regardless of what everyone else is telling you. That's what needs to happen. So yes, I would recommend it most definitely.
Good. And that's what I'm trying to do out here, Kai. I want you to know that I'm trying to get a more diverse group of people that join law enforcement, even for myself. And it's been absolutely wonderful. My shift partner now, I wish he was here. He waited on me at a local fast food restaurant. That's what he did. And he asked me an uncomfortable question. We had this communication and he looked at me and he says, why would someone like me want to do something that you do as a job? And he was asking me why I want to be a cop. And I told him why we had this discussion and it all came down. And I said, hey, I'm trying to make a change from within. Come on down, talk to me. I'll try to get you a job. He was down that day with an application and now he's my shift partner. And I absolutely adore this guy. Real quick to give it, we want to talk about communicating and de-escalation. We worked a call the other night. 2 people highly escalated when we arrived. This young man that is now my shift partner within seconds found a common trait. It was their birthday. The guy he was talking to, his birthday is tomorrow. My shift partner, Josh, his birthday's Sunday. Next thing I know, they're talking about Virgo love and it dropped and it dropped right now. And I just stood back and I was like, that's my dude. Because he did exactly what he was supposed to do as a police officer, to listen and to help. Yes. So this has been wonderful. I love this exchange. I'm glad we're going to have to do this again. We're definitely going to have to do this again sometime.
So we have our 21st question, which is going to come from the audience. Now, it can be a question directed to me or to you. It's a surprise. It's like rolling the dice, or we can go together. So we're getting ready for this one.
All right, this is scary because can I go fingers crossed and hope it's not for me? I'm already nervous.
Right. Well,
but thank you.
Her questions. So.
Oh, here we go. Question for me. Oh, from Keenan. Hi, Keenan. What advice do you have for brand new, especially young officers? Perfect question. I am fortunate enough in my department to be a field training officer, and so I get a lot of the new officers that get to riding with me. I definitely push and have been pushing this is 2020. So for the last 9 years as a training officer, I have been pushing a more community-based policing. Get out and talk. Get out and be kind to people. Because then you get to know your community. My new shift partner, it's funny that we were just talking about him, Keenan. He's learning how to get out in these communities and get out to talk to people. I am trying to start a mentorship with big brothers and big sisters in our local area because I know I can't just do it alone. And I know there's a lot of good people around the area that are willing to do this. And Big Brothers and Big Sisters has been an amazing organization for a lot of people. Even our own man, I believe, Brian, on the ones and twos, he is part of the Big Brother and Big Brother Foundation. So I'm really trying to get it here to South Hill and create all this. And I want every new officer and every new recruit that comes in, I believe that they should have to get out and do some of these public gatherings with me to get to know their local communities before they start ticketing them for parking in the wrong spot. I want to be out there. I want them to throw the football, play basketball, because we can do that. That's my job. I get to go out and play with these kids, and I absolutely love it. So, Keenan, anyway, thank you. That was a great question, and I do push forward. And I think most municipalities and localities need to push that community-based policing. And once again, it comes full circle. We've talked about that this entire conversation. I think we might be on to something, Kairi. We maybe changed forever.
Right. Oh, man. Thank you, Corporal. I really appreciate you coming onto the show and talking to me, having these really tough discussions. It's really needed. So thank you for taking time out of your day. I would like to also thank the sponsors again so much. Ben & Jerry's, Central State, Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and the Birdie Eco School. Thank you guys so much for supporting everything that's going on with this. This right here. This is what we need. But Corporal, I have one more question for you.
Oh, what?
So, just one more.
Okay.
Do you still have love for me, Corporal? Are we good? Do we still have love for each other?
I got mad love for you. I got mad love for you. Always will.
Yes. Thank you guys so much for joining, and we'll see you guys next time.